Hello everyone and welcome back to the 3T Path channel. My name is Giridhari Das and today we're continuing with our Gita Mahatmya series, and today we're seeing the powers of chapter 17 of the Bhagavad Gita. If you want to see the whole Gita Mahatmya series, check out gitamahatmya.com. We got the whole course there. We're just finishing up now, doing chapter 17 now, and soon we'll do chapter 18 and we'll be finished. So you can see the whole course there. You can see the whole series there. Now, in this chapter 17, in this episode of the Gita Mahatmya series, we'll be seeing the power of redemption of the Bhagavad Gita, how it can help you, because we commit mistakes. We all have made terrible mistakes in our lives. And so how can you redeem yourself? How can you get back onto what's really important? So this is the theme of this chapter 17 Gita Mahatmya. Now, for this chapter, for the first time in the whole Gita Mahatmya series, this story is kind of a continuation of the previous story we saw in chapter 16. So in case you haven't seen the story of chapter 16, make sure you check it out first, because it will make a little more sense. But anyway, so in chapter 16, what we saw the kingdom of King Khadgabahu, and he had this mad elephant. And so the story was centered around the powerful influence of peace and pacification of the chapters of chapter 16 of the Bhagavad Gita. So in this story, we'll still have this mad elephant in the story from the previous chapter. So let's get on with the story now. So, of course, this story is happening in the Padma Purana, and it's a conversation between Lord Shiva and Parvati. So this is how it starts. Sri Shiva said, "My dear Parvati, you have heard the unlimited glories of the 16th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Now kindly hear the nectarian glories of the 17th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita. King Khadgabahu's son had a servant by the name of Dushasan, who was very crafty and exceptionally foolish. Dushasan had made a bet with the prince that he could ride the elephant." So this is the mad elephant we saw from the chapter 16 story. "At which time he jumped upon the elephant, and after going a few steps, the people there started requesting him, 'No, don't ride that dangerous elephant,' because it was a very dangerous elephant, had killed many people already. But a sage who was chanting the 16th chapter had managed to calm it down at the moment where he was most enraged, and then they managed to take the elephant back to its quarters, to its stables. But he got this elephant out and he's riding it. And people are like, 'No, not that elephant. It's a crazy elephant.' But foolish Dushasan started to prod the elephant and use strong words to urge him on. So he's trying to get the elephant angry, trying to get him to get going. Suddenly that elephant became very angry and started to run wildly here and there. Unable to hold on, Dushasan fell to the ground. The elephant stomped on him, and Dushasan died. After that, he attained the body of an elephant in Simbaldweep, where he stayed in the king's palace." So this foolish Dushasan, he was being just silly, just trying to show off, and so he does a very dumb thing, and he dies. And this is happening, right? It happens all the time. People do very dumb things to show off, and they die. So it's not a very good way. So you have to redeem yourself from this kind of foolishness. So anyway, in his case, because he was, of course, focusing on the elephant, because in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains in verse 5 of chapter 8 that when the consciousness you're absorbed in at the moment of death is a major factor in the decision of what happens after death. So in this case of Dushasan, he was completely thinking just of the elephant, because this mad elephant is about to stomp on him. So he's like, his mind is completely focused on the elephant. He wasn't properly spiritually trained to be able to remember his true self or God. If he had, he wouldn't even have gotten himself in that situation. But anyway, so he was just like, in that moment, he was just thinking of the elephant, focused on the elephant, and because of his foolishness, that he had to then take birth as an elephant. So he took birth as an elephant in the kingdom of another king, this king from Simbaldweep. The king of Simbaldweep was a close friend of King Kadgabahu. So this other king was a friend of the king where he was, he was working for the prince of the son, of this king. So this other king was a friend of this king where he was working for. One day, the king of Simbaldweep decided to send that elephant as a present to his friend King Kadgabahu, who in turn presented that elephant to a poet who pleased him with his beautiful poetry. So that other king gave the elephant, who had been Dushasan, back to King Kadgabahu, who then gave it to a poet in his kingdom as a gift, because he liked his poetry. Thereafter, the poet sold the elephant for 100 gold coins to the king of Malva. So this elephant is being transferred around, because of course a poet doesn't need an elephant, but it's worth a lot of money. It was like in the old days the equivalent of getting like a fancy sports car. So if you're a struggling poet, you're probably not going to keep like a Ferrari or something. You just sell it. So then you use the money, which you can definitely make use of. So he sells the elephant for 100 gold coins to the king of Malva. So now this elephant is being transferred around. After some time, that elephant contracted a terminal disease. When the elephant keepers saw that the elephant had stopped eating and drinking, they reported the matter to the king. When the king found out, he went to the palace, to the place of the elephant, along with the best doctors. So the king was worried about his elephant. It's a prized possession. He's also a compassionate king, and his animal is suffering. So he went there with the best doctors. You could have the best vets. I suppose they didn't have vets. It was just doctors in general. At that time, to the surprise of the king, the elephant started to speak. So why is this elephant speaking? So the elephant tells the king, "My dear king, you are very pious and a strict follower of the Vedas. You always worship the lotus feet of Sri Vishnu. So you should know that at this time, these medicines and doctors will be of no use to me. Neither any kind of charity of sacrifice will help at the time of death. If you care for me and want to help me, then bring someone who daily recites the 17th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita." So this elephant, he had some, good karma, he had some good advancement, so he has this blessing to be able to speak, to have enough consciousness to speak, even though he is in the body of an elephant. So he tells the king, "Look, forget the medicines, forget the vets, nothing's going to help me. What I need now is just to hear the 17th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita." As requested by that elephant, the king brought a great devotee who regularly recited the 17th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. That devotee, while chanting the 17th chapter, sprinkled water on the elephant, at which time he gave up his elephant body and attained a four-armed form, similar to that of Sri Vishnu. He immediately sat down in a flower airplane, which had been sent to take him to Vaikuntha. While sitting in that airplane, the king inquired from him about his previous birth, and Dushasan, after telling him everything, left for Vaikuntha. After which, that best of men, the king of Malva, started regularly reciting the 17th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. After a short time, he attained the lotus feet of Sri Krishna. So the 17th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, it's a short chapter, but it's very interesting. It's a chapter where Krishna describes the focus on the three practices considered like the religious practices of offering yajna, of sacrifice, offering something to a higher power, yajna. Tapas, what you do with your own self regarding your own life. And dana, charity. So we go through yajna, tapas, and dana, charity, through the three modes of nature, the sattva version, the rajas version, and the tamas version of each one of these important aspects of practices to elevate your consciousness, to purify your life. So Krishna goes through these three practices, showing them which is the best, how you can best practice each one of them in sattva guna. And also in chapter 17, there's a very interesting statement by Krishna where he says that because of the gunas, you don't have really a choice of your faith. Until you cultivate enough sattva in your life, you cannot choose spiritual life. You don't have that option. You're limited because your faith is dependent on the kind of life you live. It's a very important statement of the Bhagavad Gita, highlighting the importance of having the proper sattvic culture. Just the lifestyle, your habits have to be set up in such a way that you can then have enough clarity of mind to be able to have the proper kind of faith. It's very interesting, very important statement, because a lot of people, you might wonder, like, why is there so little practice, so little proper, people following Bhagavad Gita, understanding faith in Krishna and dedication to spiritual life. Why is there so little of it? It's because our lifestyles, the current modern, the status quo lifestyle, what people do is very degrading to consciousness, the meat eating and the alcohol and the stuff we watch. So all these things, they're very low in the modes. They're rajasic or tamasic in practice. And so these things are limiting people's full access to the powers of their mind, to the powers of their consciousness. They're not living their full potential because of the habits they are cultivating. So it's a very important chapter. So anyway, so Dushasan got to go back by hearing the 17th chapter, and the king of Malva, seeing that, was enthused to also dedicate himself to chanting just the verses from the 17th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita every day, and he also attained the lotus feet of Sri Krishna. So that's it for today. Let me know if you have any questions, and have a rest of your day with lots of peace and lots of love.